Welcome to this deep dive. And today we're going to be exploring a presentation, and it's called Make Our Oligarchy Great Again.
Catchy.
Yeah, with kind, bold fonts, lots of American flag clip art. But here's the thing. This isn't your typical, rah-rah pro-America slideshow.
Yeah.
It gets a little weird.
Yeah, so this presentation is advocating for a stronger American oligarchy, and ultimately it seems like a full-blown kleptocracy. And to make things even more interesting, it's sponsored by someone calling themselves the Ancient Texan.
The Ancient Texan. Okay, so right off the bat, we've got mystery, we've got intrigue.
Yeah.
I mean, is this a serious proposal or is this some kind of elaborate joke? Honestly, I'm not sure after reading through everything.
Right.
But that's what we're here to figure out.
That's right. That's what we're doing. So the presentation starts by arguing that American oligarchs are falling behind globally. They compare them to oligarchs in China, Japan, India, even Russia. And it's like they're saying, hey, our super rich aren't super rich enough.
Okay, so we've got an oligarch Olympics going on here.
Yeah, like there's a competition.
And America's got to bring its A game.
Gotta step it up.
This is a matter of national pride, apparently.
Yeah.
So what do they propose we do about this problem?
Well, the solutions they offer are bold, to say the least. Basically, they advocate for policies that redirect wealth and resources from the less affluent towards the very top.
It's a reverse Robin Hood situation. Take from the poor, give to the rich.
Yeah, lower taxes for the wealthy, fewer resources for everyone else.
But wait, there's more, right? It's not just economics.
You're right. The presentation goes beyond just policy changes. They call for, it's interesting, unity and collective action, urging people to support, and I quote, unnamed leaders.
Oh, fun.
Yeah, to help elevate figures of wealth and power. It's pretty vague on who these leaders are or what that support actually looks like, though.
Yeah, a little bit of a trust us kind of vibe.
Right.
But they do get into some specifics with their action plan.
Oh, yeah, they do. And this is where it starts to feel like we've stepped into a political satire, like a real-life Onion article or something.
Hit me. What's step one in the master plan?
Okay, so they call it the Renew Modified Trump Tax Cut.
Okay.
Essentially, it involves renewing the Trump-era tax cuts, but with a twist. Get rid of the small tax breaks that trickled down to the middle class and the poor.
So much for trickle-down economics.
Yeah.
It's like they're not even trying to hide it at this point. This is about consolidating wealth at the top.
It seems that way. And if you think that's extreme, wait till you hear about their next proposal. It's called Eliminate Programs Helping Americans.
Really? They actually called it that. Eliminate Programs Helping Americans.
Yep. No beating around the bush with this one. It's exactly as blunt as it sounds. They propose completely eliminating programs like Head Start free lunch programs for school kids, and even entire government departments like Education, OSHA, the EPA, and the Department of Energy.
So basically gutting anything that could be seen as a safety net or a regulatory measure. What's the rationale there? I mean, besides the obvious cutting costs so that they can funnel more money to the top.
Well, they claim that these programs are inefficient, and that oligarchs, these unelected individuals with vast wealth, can handle these functions more effectively.
Because billionaires are so well known for their expertise in education and environmental protection.
Right.
So, efficient government. A handful of billionaires calling the shots. I mean, that's kind of the whole point here, right? Concentrate power, wealth, and influence in the hands of a select few.
It seems so. And their next proposal fits right in with that theme. It's called Cut Capital Gains Tax.
Ah, yes. Because why should the wealthy have to pay taxes on their investments when they could be using that money to, buy another yacht or private island?
Yeah, their logic is that since most oligarchs generate wealth through investments rather than traditional salaries, eliminating capital gains and death taxes would allow their fortunes to grow exponentially.
Okay.
They even argue that this wouldn't really harm the poor.
Right. Why should we worry about things like economic inequality and social mobility when we could have a few more mega billionaires running around? It's like we're living in a dystopian novel here.
You're not wrong. And it gets wilder. The next proposal takes us from dystopian novel to full-blown absurdist comedy.
Okay, I'm officially intrigued. Lay on me.
Yeah.
What could possibly top eliminating essential government programs?
State sponsorship of oligarchs.
I'm listening.
Essentially, each state would be required, sponsor an oligarch.
Sure.
10% of all state taxes would go directly to their assigned oligarch, and another 5% would be divided among 10 up-and-coming oligarchs, like a farm system for cultivating the next generation of super-rich elites.
So states would be judged on the greatness of their oligarchs, like some kind of bizarre reality show where states compete for the most extravagant, most influential billionaire.
It's wild.
It's like they're turning the whole concept of government and public service on its head.
Yeah.
Which brings us to the grand finale, the ultimate goal of this whole presentation, the kleptocracy dream.
Yes.
The kleptocracy dream. Okay, I'm officially lost. What exactly does that entail?
Well, they argue that America needs to evolve from what they call a half-assed kleptocracy to a more efficient and effective one.
Wait, hold on a second. Did they just casually admit that America is already a kleptocracy? Even if it's half-assed?
It appears so. And their solution is to double down. They want laws passed to legalize the transfer of state funds to these oligarch farms and to remove any pesky constitutional restrictions or existing laws that might hinder this kleptocratic utopia.
So now we're talking about shredding the Constitution to empower a handful of ultra-wealthy oligarchs. This isn't just dystopian anymore. This is terrifying.
It's definitely a radical vision, and the presentation doesn't just stop at laying out these proposals. They actually issue a call to action.
Okay, I have to know, what do they want people to do with all of this?
The final slide urges listeners to be the first in their town to establish local chapters of Kleptocracy, the Future of America. They even hint at further instructions to follow once the video goes viral, which they seem oddly confident will happen.
So they're actually trying to build a movement around this, a Kleptocracy, the Future of America movement.
Apparently so. And they end with a statement that's either incredibly bold or incredibly ironic. Hail to King Trump and first kleptocrat Elon.
Well, King Trump and first kleptocrat Elon. It's like they're deliberately throwing out the most provocative, most over-the-top language imaginable.
Yeah.
Like maybe it's satire. Maybe the whole point is to hold up a mirror to a certain segment of American society and politics to show just how absurd their beliefs are.
That's certainly a possibility. After all the focus on oligarchs, the disdain for social programs and government regulation, the invocation of figures like Trump and Elon Musk, it all seems to be pointing a finger at a very specific ideology.
An ideology that maybe isn't as fringe as we'd like to think. And that's what makes this presentation so unsettling, so thought-provoking. It forces us to confront some uncomfortable truths about the state of American politics and the direction we might be heading in.
Yeah, it's really something. It's really something. It makes you think, as we delve deeper into this kleptocracy dream, it's hard not to see parallels with what's going on in American society. We've got, growing wealth inequality, a decline in social mobility, and increasing distrust of government institutions.
It's like this presentation, whether it's satirical or not, is tapping into a very real anxiety, a fear that America is drifting towards a system where a small elite holds all the power and the rest of us are just, along for the ride.
And the language they use invoking King Trump and first kleptocrat Elon, it seems to deliberately play with this idea of celebrity and authority. It's almost like they're suggesting that fame and fortune are the new markers of legitimacy, even in the political sphere.
It's a bit unsettling, isn't it? I mean, we live in a culture that's obsessed with celebrity, obsessed with wealth, with the idea of the self-made billionaire. And this presentation seems to be feeding into that, almost weaponizing it.
Yeah, it's like they're saying, look, if you admire these super rich individuals, why not just hand them the keys to the kingdom? Let them run the country like a business. But of course, governing a country isn't the same as running a corporation. It's about representing the interests of all citizens, not just a select few.
Right. And this presentation completely glosses over that crucial distinction.
Right. It brings us back to the question of satire. If this presentation is meant to be satirical, it's a pretty brilliant piece of social commentary, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, it takes these trends that we're seeing, the wealth inequality, the celebrity worship, the erosion of trust in government, and pushes them to their logical and utterly absurd conclusion.
Like they're holding up a funhouse mirror to American society, saying, look, this is where we're headed if we're not careful. This is what happens when we elevate wealth and power above all else.
And what's even more disturbing is that some people might actually take this seriously.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, think about it. We live in a world where misinformation spreads like wildfire. Conspiracy theories gain traction. The lines between reality and fiction are constantly blurred.
That's a good point. In a world where people are already primed to believe the most outlandish claims, a presentation like this could actually serve as a kind of blueprint, a roadmap for a certain segment of the population.
Yeah, it's a scary thought, but I think you're right. And it speaks to the power of rhetoric, the way that language can be used to manipulate and mislead.
Absolutely. But on the other hand, if this is satire, it also has the potential to be incredibly effective. Satire can be a powerful tool for social change, for exposing hypocrisy and highlighting injustice.
It reminds me of those classic political cartoons, the ones that capture the essence of an issue with a single biting image. This presentation is doing something similar, just on a grander, more elaborate scale.
Yeah, it's using shock value exaggeration, even absurdity, to get people talking, to force them to confront these uncomfortable truths about where America might be heading.
And that's a good thing, right? I mean, even if it makes us squirm a little, even if it challenges our assumptions. It's important to have these conversations, to think critically about the role of wealth and power in our society, to question whether we're truly living up to our ideals of equality and opportunity.
Exactly, and I think that's a crucial takeaway for our listeners. Regardless of whether you think this presentation is a joke or a genuine manifesto, it's a reminder that we need to be vigilant to engage in these discussions, to hold our leaders accountable, and to demand a system that works for everyone, not just the privileged few.
So what do you think? In your expert opinion, is this satire or a serious proposal? Or maybe, and this is a thought that's been swirling around in my head, is it a bit of both?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And I honestly don't think there's a simple answer. It's possible that the creators of this presentation are using satire as a Trojan horse, a way to smuggle in these radical ideas under the guise of humor. Or maybe they're just provocateurs trying to get a rise out of people. Yeah.
It's like they're playing a game, daring us to take them seriously to see how far they can push the boundaries.
Mm,
In a way, we're all playing along, aren't we? By analyzing it, debating it,
right.
even questioning its authenticity, we're giving it oxygen.
That's the paradox of satire, isn't it? It needs an audience to be effective, but that very audience can also be susceptible to its message, even if it's not intended to be taken literally.
I think it's time we move on to their call to action, because that's where things get really interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've unpacked this kleptocracy dream, and it's a bit unsettling.
Yeah.
But let's shift gears a bit and talk about what it all means, you know?
Right, because whether or not this presentation is satire or serious, it brings up some pretty fundamental questions about where we're going as a society.
Exactly. Like, what happens if we just keep going down this path of unchecked wealth inequality and, all the power in the hands of just a few people?
Well, historically speaking, societies with huge wealth disparities tend to be less stable, less democratic, and more likely to have social unrest. Look at the French Revolution or the Russian Revolution. Both were driven, at least in part, by resentment over that gap between the rich and the poor.
Yeah. It's like that old saying, you can only push people so far before they push back. And when you have a system where the elite hoard all the wealth and power, it breeds that resentment, that anger, and that instability.
Precisely. And we're seeing some signs of that tension even today. The rise of populism, both on the left and the right, it's fueled by a sense that the system is rigged, that the elites are out of touch with, everyday people.
And this presentation, even if it's satire, it's tapping into that feeling that something's not right, something's broken.
And I think that's what makes it so effective, whether it's intentional or not. It forces us to look at these uncomfortable truths about our own society, to ask ourselves some hard questions about what kind of future we want.
Yeah, like, are we okay with a system where a few billionaires have more than entire nations? Where essential things like education and healthcare and protecting the environment are just left to the market to decide? Where political power is basically up for sale to the highest bidder?
Those are big questions, and there aren't easy answers, but we have to start talking about them. We're at a crossroads, and the choices we make now, they have a huge impact on what's coming next.
For sure. And I think we need to say, this isn't about being against wealth or success. It's about creating a fair system, a system where everyone has a real shot, not just the people born into privilege.
I agree. It's about making sure the benefits of economic growth are shared, that everyone has a chance, no matter where they come from.
And it's about taking back our democracy from these special interests, making sure our government works for the people, not just for the wealthy and powerful.
One thing that really stood out to me in this presentation was how they seem to romanticize this idea of kleptocracy. They make it sound like it's efficient, even desirable.
Like, hey, if the rich are going to be in charge anyway, let's just make it official.
Right. But history shows us something very different. Kleptocracies are corrupt, inefficient, and they don't last. They make a small group rich at the expense of everyone else, leading to poverty, instability, and often violence.
A recipe for disaster.
Yeah.
But there's something about their message that's almost seductive. This idea that a few brilliant rich people could just come in and fix everything.
It's the great man theory. The idea that progress comes from a few exceptional individuals, not from people working together or social movements.
And that's a dangerous idea. It ignores all the people who fight for justice and equality every day. It diminishes the power of collective action. The idea that we can change things by working together, holding our leaders accountable, demanding a system that works for everyone.
And that's the message we need to focus on. We can't be seduced by the easy answers offered by kleptocrats and their supporters. We have to take back our democracy, rebuild trust, and work together for a fairer and more just society.
So for our listeners who might be feeling overwhelmed or maybe even a little hopeless, what would you say to them? Where do we go from here? What can we do?
First, just be aware. Recognize what's happening. Understand how wealth and power are being used, how they're shaping our political world and our choices.
Knowledge is power. Once you see the problem, you can start to look for solutions.
We can do a lot, both as individuals and together. Support groups fighting for economic and social justice, environmental protection.
Get involved in your communities, advocate for fair policies, hold your elected officials accountable.
We can educate ourselves and others about kleptocracy and why democracy is so important. And maybe most importantly, we can't be silent. Speak out against injustice. Demand a system that works for everyone.
I love that. I hope everyone listening takes that to heart. Because the future isn't set in stone. We create it together through our choices, our actions, and our commitment to a better world.
That's what this deep dive has been all about, giving you the tools and the inspiration to navigate these complex and challenging times.
As we wrap up, I want to leave you with one last thought. The presentation we talked about, satire or not, is a reflection of us, of our values, our priorities, what we want.
Yeah.
And the question is, are we happy with what we see? Are we ready to demand something better, something more just, something more worthy of what we say we believe in?
That's for each of you to decide. But I hope this deep dive has given you some food for thought, some tools, some inspiration to start those conversations, to have those tough debates, and to work together for a future that's truly just equitable and sustainable for everyone.
That's all the time we have for today. But this is really just the beginning. The deep dive continues. We encourage you to explore these ideas, do your own research, and share your thoughts.
Yeah, keep the conversation going.
Until next time, stay curious, stay engaged, and keep asking those tough questions.